Hi all, it's great to see you all here. So, she is a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times. She's the best-selling author of Shrill, a memoir, and the executive producer of the Hulu show of the same name, starring A.D. Bryant, which you should all be binging starting this evening before tomorrow morning's festivities. She's also an abortion rights activist. And whether it's her essays about Me Too, rape culture, or how 90s pop culture dissuaded youth activism, or her perfect mic-dropping lines like, yes, this is a witch hunt. I'm a witch, and I'm hunting you. Lindy has an uncanny ability to pull so many threads into a tidy package and then sucker punch us with the truth. When Lindy speaks, we have to listen. It's my great honor to welcome Lindy to the stage, and immediately following, you should all run across the street to Chelsea Market to the bookstore and buy her new book. The Witches Are Coming. It came out yesterday, and we are thrilled to have her with us today. Please welcome Lindy.
Hi. Wow, this is fancy. Hello. Oh my gosh. I'm so thrilled to be here. This is truly so impressive and overwhelming, and the energy in here as soon as I walked in the door was just electric, and it's really inspiring to be here. So thank you all so much. Since my book came out yesterday, it looks like this. And I guess I was about to say something self-deprecating about not trying to sell books, but then I was like, I think that this is for business women, and and maybe I should learn something about actually trying to be successful. So you should buy it. But I'm really proud of it, and I'm actually. Since it came out yesterday, today is the first day of my book tour, and this is going to be my very first ever reading from the book. I'm going to read some parts of the book to you guys, you gals and people. And I think this might be my favorite chapter in the book. I don't know. Who can say? I don't know. I don't want to commit, but I really like this chapter that I'm going to read to you. Because I think it's really relevant to this current socio-political moment. A lot of the book is about sort of taking a re-examination of the pieces of pop culture that I personally grew up with and have been interested in. It's a lot about comedy, it's a lot about internet culture, and examining maybe the stories that we've been telling ourselves about who we are, and the stories that we've been telling ourselves about each other, and the ways that Americans especially love to lie to ourselves about who we are, and to kind of bury the more challenging and damning truths about the origins of this country and the present reality in this country. So this chapter is about the concept of likability, which I think is very relevant to this presidential election that we are unfortunately embroiled in. Unfortunately/fortunately. Thank fucking God. And I meant to look up the exact statistic, and of course I didn't because I'm not a good businesswoman or organized. But I just read something that's it's something like 30 to 35% of people polled said that they find all the female candidates running to be unlikable, which is wild. That's a wild thing to say. And literally not even a question I have ever heard asked about a male candidate or any man. That's an easy applause break, but seriously, and also, I believe last night, Joe Biden said that Elizabeth Warren was angry, which is also a term deployed to discredit and quiet down, silence women. So this is a chapter about that double standard, and it's called Oh, now that I'm glancing down at this, there's so many things in here that are going to be so embarrassing to read. Okay, it's fine. First reading. Here we go. We're going to do it. This chapter is called I remember when I pitched the title of this chapter, and I was like, they're not going to put that. And then they let me. They did. Okay. It's called Ted Bundy Was Not Charming. Are you high? Okay. For as long as I can remember, I've been terrified that a man was going to sneak into my house and murder me. Actually, convinced might be a more accurate word than terrified, but I don't want to say convinced because I am at the same time totally dismissive of the supernatural and extremely superstitious. I don't think that jinxing things is real, but I do not jinx things. Why risk it? Just a few weeks ago, I was sitting in my hotel lobby in New York City reading Jason Mantzoukas' Wikipedia entry, and then Jason Mantzoukas walked by me. That really absolutely happened. He's an actor. It's fine. You would recognize him. I don't know. He walked right by me in the lobby. That's not in the book. I'm just still blown away by it. Who knows what's possible? Plus, if you say such things as, I'm convinced I will get serial killed, and then by coincidence, you do get serial killed, it becomes a whole thing in your Dateline. Keith Morrison is like, I can't believe I picked this chapter where I have to do a Keith Morrison impression. Okay. Keith Morrison is like, a beautiful young nymph, haunted by visions of being serial killed. But they were only visions, right? Wrong. It goes on. It's not over. One hot summer night in a sleepy town deep in the heart of Texas, those visions became all too real. Okay, if anyone here is a Dateline producer and would like to hire me to write for Dateline, I'm available. It's my favorite show. 3 asides on Dateline real quick. 1, it was either the husband, the ex-husband, or someone who wanted to fuck her, but she turned him down. Always. Like, white cops always want it to be someone's possible ties to the Russian mob because their brother sold someone named Casimir a boat in 1992. And it is never, ever that. It is never a global human trafficking ring. Eat it, white guys. You love weird sex murder. Number 2, the only foolproof way to murder your wife is to take her hiking and then very gently hip check her off a cliff. You cannot hip check her too hard because the scientists can tell the trajectory. The scientists always measure. This is relevant. 3, all Dateline correspondents are my children, but here is my ranking of them in order of how much I love my children. Keith Morrison, Josh Mankiewicz, Andrea Canning, Dennis Murphy. Sorry, Dennis. I love you, but I love you the least. I love you 4th. Okay, so I have to say that it was a little annoying when, in January 2019, everyone on Earth suddenly became Ted Bundy experts because of Netflix's 4-part documentary series, Conversations with a Killer, The Ted Bundy Tapes. Like, excuse me, some of us have had the Wikipedia page list of serial killers by number of victims bookmarked since 2006, and it was only published in 2005. Also, a hot read, list of fatal bear attacks in North America by decade. Just FYI, that's just a tip from me. Likewise, the great true crime podcast boom of Trump's America has been both an irritant and a boon. Like, yes, it's my food, feed me my food, but also please acknowledge and honor my lifelong interest in sexual knife crime. Something just occurred to me. Do cisgender men not spend absolutely every moment of their lives obsessed with the possibility of home invasion? Do they sleep soundly all through the night, even if there is a noise? Do they notice if they get home and the porch light is off, but they are certain they turned the porch light on before they left? Do they think about giving up their lovely house, their porch, their garden, for a high-rise apartment because there are fewer points of entry? Do they consider going home from work early because they can't stop wondering if the wooden dowel in the basement window track has somehow come askew? Do they rehearse protocols for which heavy dresser they will shove in front of the bedroom door if they hear someone creaking up the hallway, and lie awake at night wondering how thick particle board would need to be to stop bullets? What about particle board, a layer of folded sweaters, and then another piece of particle board with a faux wood grain laminate? How easily and how far can one man shove one door, one fat woman, and one piece of an IKEA bedroom set? Could I survive a jump out of a second-story window? Should I aim for the tree or try to avoid the tree? Do fat people bounce better or hit harder? I'm sure that some men think of these things, of course. But is such vigilance for them as subconscious and involuntary as breathing? Is it a constant, a processor worrying 24/7? Are they thinking about waking up with a man looming at the foot of the bed or pressing down on top of them? Or do they merely see a threat to their property, a territorial violation? Does every day feel like a stay of execution? Often when I hear men speak about home invasion, it's not in the context of what an intruder might do to them, but rather, in an almost fetishistic way, what they might do to an intruder. These men yearn to stand their ground, to have an excuse to use their arsenal, to find out what it feels like to kill another human being, and you know, in this morally bereft country, what color human being they're picturing. Straight, white, cisgender men love to file serial killers under some darker subcategory of white male genius. It's easier to be titillated when fear is an abstraction. Ooh, BTK installed security systems so he could disarm them later. Isn't that smart? Gary Ridgway eluded the cops for 20 years. Bundy were a fake cast. Diabolical. No, you dick lickers. They were fucking pathetic, opportunistic incel losers who leveraged the staggering confidence that our society confers upon bare minimum white men in order to get away with obliterating the lives of sexual objects they despised because they could not own them. Much like Ada Lovelace, the inventor of the fucking computer. It was interesting to... It was interesting to observe the renewed national conversation about Bundy in light of another national obsession incubating at the time, the early stirrings of the 2020 presidential campaign. Watching otherwise rational human beings rhapsodize about Bundy's charm and brilliance while furrowing their brows over Elizabeth Warren's dubious likability creates a particularly American kind of whiplash. The prevailing Bundy narrative has always, and I say this as someone who grew up in Seattle, where Ted Bundy is a hometown boy, and my entire life I have had to hear about the incredible, charming genius Ted Bundy. So I don't know if that narrative is new to people who just watched this documentary, but like literally my whole life, I feel like I've been hearing just like, he's essentially a god. Like, okay. The prevailing Bundy narrative has always hammered away at how handsome and charismatic the man was. But one would think that in 2019, if the Me Too brown shirts truly have the death grip on pop culture and justice that the whinging class claims we do, someone might have red flagged the canonization of a shitty rapist failure who murdered at least 30 women. Ted Bundy was a mediocre student whom no one liked, who failed at everything he ever tried to do except for exploiting women's socialization as caregivers in order to put them into vulnerable situations so he could take away their one single, precious, exquisite life. Elizabeth Warren put herself through Rutgers Law School with a toddler at home, held endowed professorships at the University of Pennsylvania School of Law and Harvard School of Law, became perhaps the most influential expert on bankruptcy law in the country, has been a US Senator since 2012, and is now arguably the most principled and policy-driven candidate in the fight to wrest power from a profligate dictator and lead Americans to help save our dying planet. Ugh, off-putting. I hate it when my mommy makes me brush my teeth. Far more likably, Ted Bundy pretended to have a broken arm so he could rape, bludgeon, shoot, and stab women. Okay. It's a funny book. It's a comedy chapter. Okay. Things that don't make a white man unlikable. Murdering, stealing everyone's money, grabbing women by the pussy, cult leading, making everyone in your cult commit suicide with you, genocide, being a DJ. Things that do make a woman unlikable. Voice, body, hair, shoes, kids, no kids, sex, no sex, money, no money, inhale, exhale, metabolize food, shed skin cells, use muscles to move bones around, do anything, die. Likeability is a con, and we're all falling for it. I watched Netflix and Hulu's dueling documentaries on the social media mega scam Fyre Festival the same week that I got that Ted Bundy documentary in my craw. And look, I am not saying, because the lawyer says that I have to, that Fyre Festival CEO Billy McFarland is like a serial killer because he lured hundreds of nubile young influencers to a remote island with no food or shelter and then tooted off on a golden jet ski and left them to be eaten by wild pigs. Again, the lawyer says I have to clarify that he did not literally do this. He just mostly did exactly that. I am saying that McFarland is like a serial killer because he is exactly as likable as Ted Bundy, yet somehow I had to watch 2 entire documentaries about how charming and charismatic he is. I'm sorry, is everyone on MDMA and can I please have some? Billy McFarland is the most obvious bumbling con artist dumbass ever birthed by the universe. He's the guy who never helps on the group project. He's the bully's... This is fun. Okay. I literally have no idea how, this is the first time I've gotten any kind of gauge of whether I did a good job, so thank you. Oh no, stop. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it like that. I'm just, okay. He's the bully's least memorable henchman. He's that kind of American rich kid who doesn't bother to learn more than one vowel. He looks like the producers spread peanut butter on his tongue and then had his audio dubbed by a frat guy halfway through dying of alcohol poisoning. He seems to be, to put it charitably, barely alive. If we're all made of star stuff, he's from the butt part of the star. Sorry to be a mean bitch, but I am so fucking sick, fucking violently ill, of having to watch good people be conned by smug simpletons who couldn't beat a dog at Candyland. Ted Bundy and Billy McFarland are both more charming than Donald Trump, and that boner pratfalled his way into becoming the most powerful man on earth. That guy is who brought us down? One malicious side effect of Americans' bootstrap ethos, itself just a massive grift to empower the snickering rich, is that it conditions people to cheer at deregulation, to beg and plead for the removal of consumer protections. We are literally asking to be conned. We are a smorgasbord for the most unscrupulous and the least deserving. Being a giant fucking sucker is as American as school shootings. The past few decades have been a tug of war over the benefit of the doubt. Black Lives Matter demands that white America adjust its assumptions about the inherent goodness of cops, about who looks like a criminal and who looks like a fine boy having a bad mental health day. Me Too demands we re-examine what credibility looks like, who gets to define it and mete it out, who gets to stride through the world assuming that they have it. Institutional benefit of the doubt is monstrously powerful. Any lie becomes an incantation, conjuring itself into truth. This is the foundation of Donald Trump's power. I am a handsome law student. The Fire Festival is real, and Kendall Jenner will be there. I'm the least racist person you'll ever meet. To fund Fire Festival, Billy McFarland called people and asked for millions of dollars, and people were like, sure. To not get caught, Ted Bundy just had to exist. Multiple acquaintances reported him based on the police sketch, his brown Volkswagen, and his shitty personality, but cops thought that a handsome, law student, he got bored and stopped going, couldn't possibly be a murderer. I mean, you guys, the Michael Scott Paper Company was just a supply closet filled with cheese balls, and it got a multi-million-dollar buyout from Dunder Mifflin. Like, men, would it kill you to say thank you once in a while? There's a famous moment from the Bundy trial in 1979. A trial in which Bundy disrupted the proceedings repeatedly with outlandish disrespect to the court and to his victims, when Judge Edward D. Cowart of Dade County, Florida, delivered Bundy's death sentence. Quote, this is what the judge said when he delivered Ted Bundy's death sentence. It starts out okay. The court finds that both of these killings were indeed heinous, atrocious, and cruel, and that they were extremely wicked, shockingly evil, vile, and the product of a design to inflict a high degree of pain and utter indifference to human life. This court, independent of but in agreement with the advisory sentence rendered by the jury, does hereby impose the death penalty upon the defendant, Theodore Robert Bundy. It is further ordered that on such scheduled date that you be put to death by a current of electricity sufficient to cause your immediate death, and such current of electricity shall continue to pass through your body until you are dead. Sorry, that's very disturbing to read, but okay. I don't believe in the death penalty, but otherwise seems pretty on point. Then the judge went on. Quote, take care of yourself, young man. I say that to you sincerely. Take care of yourself. It is an utter tragedy for this court to see such a total waste of humanity, I think, as I've experienced in this courtroom. You're a bright young man. You'd have made a good lawyer. And I would have loved to have you practice in front of me. But you went another way, partner. I don't feel any animosity towards you. I want you to know that. Take care of yourself. Okay. Okay. So just to recap, women, just living life, going to college, having brown hair, swimming, helping the injured. Ted Bundy murders 30 women at least because his pee-pee scrunched from being a massive shitty failure. The legal system, Bundy, you are a great man and a great lawyer and could be our greatest president if I'm being honest, but unfortunately, I gotta sentence you to death on account of all the murder and whatnot. Sorry, buddy, dang, I wish I could hire you as my son, and heck, you should be doing my job, partner, P.S. you my hero. I wonder how many of the women Bundy murdered would have made good lawyers. I wonder how many female and minority lawyers Judge Cowart mentored in his lifetime. This anecdote is often held up as evidence of Bundy's charisma. Even the judge sentencing him to death was seduced by that smirk, that finger wave. But it is the most blatant, overwhelming evidence we have for the opposite. Men don't need charisma to succeed. It doesn't matter if men are likable, because men are people who do things, who don't have to ask first, whose potential has value even after it is squandered. On the other hand, women. Is there such a thing as a likable woman? Can you think of one? And if she exists, could she be anything but the ultimate manifestation of everything we hate about the water we swim in? Everything that we're forced to be. Likability in a sexist, racist culture is not objective. It's compulsory femininity, the gender binary, invisible labor, whiteness, smallness, sweetness. It's letting them do it, which is a callback to They Let You Do It, Just Grab Them by the Pussy, which I talked about earlier in the book. Surprise, surprise. If someone is universally likable, I don't trust that person. That's the opposite of politics. I don't want a candidate that the alt-right likes. I don't want to have anything in common with George Zimmerman. A person's standard of likability is a reflection of his beliefs. And unfortunately, in this country, a whole lot of people believe that Donald Trump is not a racist shart in an 8-foot tie who is unqualified for literally every job except for lie down. So no, excuse me, we will not play likability anymore. It's an endless runner, a game with no progress and no finish line, that women are expected to chase, that keeps us from doing the real work, accruing the real power. Chasing likability has been one of women's biggest setbacks by design. I don't know that rejecting likability will get us anywhere, but I know that embracing it has gotten us nowhere. Witch is something we call a woman who demands the benefit of the doubt, who speaks the truth, who punctures the con, who kills your joy if your joy is killing. A witch has power, and power in women isn't likable. It's ugly, cartoonish. But to not assert our power, even if we fail, is to let them do it. This new truth-telling, this witchcraft of ours, by definition cannot be likable. We cannot pander or wait for consensus. The world is too big and complicated and rigged. We're saying the things that people don't like. Those are the only truly edgy things. That's the point. Someone will always pop up to say, you would be more effective if you were nicer. You would have a more receptive audience if you adjusted your tone. You catch more flies with honey. Well, I don't want flies. The most likable woman in the world is crawling with fucking flies. Thank you. Thank you. That's so nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Man, I loved writing that chapter. If you haven't tried writing a very angry book full of disgusting metaphors and swear words, you should do it. It's very, very therapeutic. So I think Carrie's going to come back out and we're going to do hi. And we're going to do some Q&A. And I would love to A, all of your Qs. So please don't be shy. Let's talk. Okay. Is this working? Oh, hello.
Hi. I feel like we should start with some kind of NPR moment. Hi, Lindy.
Hi, Carrie. That was more like a phone sex line
Totally.
thing
All right,
that I did.
Let's reverse course there.
I'm just naturally sexy and I exude it. So that's no, I don't. I'm very awkward and weird and uncomfortable.
But very likable.
Thank you. I know, it's weird. Someone fully called me out in an interview that I did where they were like, you wrote this whole chapter about how women shouldn't try to be likable, but then you did this. But in this interview, you said about making Shrill the TV show that you wanted to create a likable fat character, and I was like, oh, you got me. It's true. I was like, that is true. I did. I am a liar. But I mean, the answer is look, it's a con, but also we all have to live in this system, and you know what I mean?
Totally.
Right? It's fine, right? But no, I mean, it is a really complicated question. It's the same as is beauty real? Because obviously conventional beauty standards are made up and they're pushed on us so that people can sell things. But also, a sunset is beautiful. Some things are clearly objectively pretty. And also, if you start going down that road, then what are clothes?
So actually, let's go down that road for a minute, Lindy.
Okay. I'm just interviewing myself. I'm sorry.
It's great. It's great.
I feel like I'm so sorry.
It's actually what the people are here for.
No.
But what are clothes, Lindy?
I don't know. Isn't it? It's weird, right? Because if you start to be like, okay, beauty is made up. It's like capitalism, and it's to sell you things, and everyone is beautiful, and there's no such thing as beauty. So then you're like, and that feels true, right? Like everyone, there are beautiful things about every person, and it's totally arbitrary when you start to really like look at diverse bodies and start to think about like why, like I've clearly been conditioned to think that this one is better than this one. But then when you go, then you're like, okay, then what's fashion week? Like, why did I pick this? Ugh. I don't have an answer. It breaks my head. Because I guess the answer, again, is that like, okay, well, maybe the system is flawed and weird and made up and alien, but we all live inside of it. So you just got to try to like be ethical but also make yourself happy.
Can we talk just for a moment before we get to questions? So you are a writer, and you produced a show. And you are also, so much of what you write is searing criticism of media. Also, both Firefest docs are really good for different reasons, so you should all watch them all.
Incredible.
But how is it for you as a critic of the media to be in the media and producing it?
Oh, it's like very complicated because I was like a very deeply cruel and petty critic for many years because I started working, writing for newspapers and being a film critic when I was like 23. And so, you don't have like a moral compass yet. And
no offense to any 23-year-olds here.
No, I'm sure
Yeah.
Okay, look.
Kidding.
You're all perfect. I was a nightmare. I was a true demon. And all I wanted was to be funny. And it's the easiest way to be funny is to be mean and to trash something. Like it's like life hack. If you want to write like a funny newspaper column about a movie, just be like, this movie was the worst movie I've ever seen. And people, it's so easy to like roast something. It's much harder to be funny when you're being thoughtful and nuanced and saying something positive and kind, or at least like constructive. So for like years I didn't do that. I was just like a terror. And so part of like my life now that I am making things that are being critiqued is like, if karma is real, I just deserve to be like completely destroyed, and I accept that. I'm fine with that. That's fine. I deserve it. But I think it makes it. I'm definitely hyper aware, and I think that this is for the good of the show. I'm hyper aware of how every single frame will be received. When we're in the writer's room, I'm always like 80 steps ahead, like, okay, how is this gonna go over on Twitter? How's this, because as someone who's been a public figure and writing in public for a long time, it's just basic self-protection to think ahead, and I'm framing that in a selfish way, but it's also the right way to be a person, for a person in the world, is to think about the consequences of what you're saying and how you're saying it and who it's going to impact and what you're leaving out and what, this is just the work of being a responsible living human being. But I definitely think that my time as a writer, which obviously I still am, but a writer of prose, prepared me really well and like a public-facing writer, like a person on the internet being tortured on Twitter for many years, prepared me to be, I think, really thoughtful in making this show and making sure that we are being very intentional in what we make and what we put out there. And I was fortunate enough to get to be involved in every step of the process, in casting, in writing. I'm on set every day. And I'm really proud of what we made, and I feel grateful that I was put through the ringer for so many years, because I don't know. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot over the course of my career. And God, 23-year-old me should not have been allowed to make a TV show because it would have been a horror.
Although I sort of wish we could see what that would have been.
No. Nope, that's a no. That's a no for me, dog.
Are there audience questions? Lindy loves questions from the audience. We discussed this prior.
I
Don't disappoint Lindy.
I feel like Q&A is one of my strengths. I don't know.
All right, hi, thank you for coming here today. So we've heard from a lot of great people today about maybe a pivotal moment or a failure that they had happen earlier on in their career that really started to drive them. So I would just love to hear if you have a moment or a few moments that really just pushed you forward and said, like, screw it, I'm gonna do this and it's gonna happen.
Oh, that's such a great question. I feel like I failed at so many things. I think that, let me think. I don't know. I mean, I think especially growing up like a fat woman, nobody takes you seriously, and nobody, people are sort of conditioned to view fat people as physically lazy, but also intellectually lazy. And I definitely feel like I was constantly underestimated my entire life to the point where I didn't really take myself seriously for a very, very long time. And at a certain point, and there's not a specific incident really, but like, well, I guess it might be that moment with, I write about this in Shrill, and we do a sort of version of it in season 1 of the TV show where I had this dispute with my boss, Dan Savage, where Dan, and this was a different time when this was sort of a normal part of the discourse. Unfortunately, it's not anymore, really. Dan was writing a lot about the obesity epidemic in a way that people don't really anymore. I mean, people do in their personal life, but people who are in danger of being canceled on the internet don't. About, kind of his aesthetic complaints about fat people and his assumptions about fat people's willpower and eat less, exercise more, all of the usual things. And I had this I tried to talk to him privately and say, hey, I'm a fat person and I'm your employee and we're friends and this is really degrading and harmful to my mental health and could you maybe not? And he kind of dismissed me and he was like, do you feel any animosity from me personally? And I was like, no, that's not really the point. And then he never wrote back to me again. We had a little email exchange. So then I went rogue and wrote a manifesto and just posted it on the blog. It was a different time. And I remember that moment. I think even just me sending Dan that email was maybe the first time that I described myself as fat. And I was like, I'm a fat person. And I deserve dignity and respect. I don't think I had ever expressed that before, even to myself. But I hit this level of frustration with having to have my work alongside pieces of writing that I felt truly degraded me as a human being. And I just remember being like, I don't know what's going to happen if I do this. This is new territory for me in a million different ways, but I'm just gonna do it. What? What is my alternative? To just keep sitting here next to literally there was a couple, I don't remember, at least one time where he posted a picture of a fat person that he took at a carnival to be look at this fatty. I don't even remember what the point of the post was. Anyway, and yeah, I mean, I feel like that was definitely a turning point. I guess it's not exactly a failure for me, although it really could have been. But it was sort of the end of me just accepting whatever people wanted however people wanted to treat me, and really believing that I had something to say and that it was valuable. And it was the first moment that I felt a piece of my writing move the world in any way. The response to it was so intense. It's really the beginning of the arc that brought me to where I am right now. So I guess the failure would be the 26 years before that. And then, yeah, that was a really big, important breaking point for me.
It's really interesting. This morning, Stacey London, who was brilliant and hilarious, was talking about when she was fired from a job, and she said everybody here should get fired at least once. And the follow-up sentiment was that kind of experience forces you across a different threshold. And when you're asked about failure, you bring up really a threshold moment that led you to who you are now. It's an interesting through line.
Yeah, I did get fired one time. That reminded me.
But not after the blog post.
It was before that. Yeah, I think it was before that. And it was like, anyway, it's not interesting. But I was like contracted to write some columns for a different newspaper. And it was my old self, myself before that threshold. And I would try to write things, and I literally didn't have the confidence to like complete one assignment. And they kept waiting and asking, and we would talk through pitches, and then I like couldn't do it. And eventually they were like, okay, never mind. And in a like a meaner way than that. Like it was like, you have disappointed us and you are bad. And it was because I didn't feel like I remember specifically feeling like I'm not the kind of person that's qualified to say things. Maybe I'm qualified to like write my little opinions about movies in this weekly newspaper in Seattle, but this was like a national newspaper, and I was like, I'm not that person that knows things, you know? And now, of course, perhaps I have too much confidence in my opinions, but it's interesting to look back at that moment, you know?
Ooh, now lots of questions. This is going to get difficult. Mic runners. Over here. Yes.
I'm so glad that you're here today, and your humbleness is charming in the best way. But I'm becoming a fangirl. I want to know, who do you fangirl for? Who are your heroes?
Oh my gosh. Everyone here. Is that pandering?
Good answer.
Let's see. No, all my answers are like actually so dumb.
Oh, come on.
No,
You got to.
I can't. No. Let's see. Well, I love Liz Warren, like I said. Love, truly, deeply love. I call her Liz. We've never met.
Liz.
My friend met her and said she was like really nice.
So high likability.
Shit. It doesn't matter if she's nice. I hope she's mean. Oh my God. Okay, this is like a weird answer to this. Well, no, it's not. Okay. Does anyone watch those Bon Appetit videos where Claire... Okay, so I noticed like 2 days ago that Claire follows me on Instagram. So then I sent her a message and I was like, can I send you a copy of my new book? And then she wrote back and said that she was my fan and that she did want a copy of my book. And I was like, this is like the biggest fangirl moment that I have had in years. And it was weird because it felt like we were having that feeling about each other at the same time. But I'm like still high on it. Although it just reminded me that I didn't write her back. And I need to do that. Aren't those videos good? Everyone should go watch them. It's called Gourmet Makes. And then this incredible queen named Claire tries to recreate famous snack foods, such as she will like make a Twix from scratch. Okay, go look it up. And I'm sure I have many other heroes as well. But those are the two main ones, would be Liz Warren and Claire. Also, you should all read my sister-in-law, Ijoma Oluo's book, So You Want to Talk About Race. It's so good. Not because she's my sister, but she is, which is weird. And also Samantha Irby is my other hero. And both of them have new books coming out, I believe, next year, and you should buy them. And they're both the best. And that's not just me plugging my friends, but also they deserve it.
Oh, in the back.
Who was it? Hi, I'm Tina.
Hi.
It's nice to meet you. I can't believe I'm talking to you. This is insane. First of all, the work that you put out into the world makes me feel seen, and I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful.
Thank you so much.
One of the things I love about the way that you write is that you're mad. And I'm mad too. I think a lot of us are mad, but I don't know how to be mad out loud because I'm also afraid. And so I don't know how you be mad out loud without being afraid all the time. Or if you are afraid all the time, what do you do about that? Because that's also exhausting. But that's my question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a complicated question. Personally, I find anger to be very helpful. It's very galvanizing, and it's a very active emotion, as opposed to despair, which is the other one that that's very tempting. But I have the extreme privilege to have the weirdest job in the world, where people pay me more money the angrier and more opinionated I am. So I'm rewarded for being loud and angry. Not on Twitter, but I quit Twitter, so it's fine. But that's not the situation for most people, and of course that's also it's not safe and productive and rewarded for most people, especially women, and especially Black women, to express anger publicly and loudly. It's very stigmatized and very much punished. There are consequences. So I'm not here to. I wrote a chapter about anger in this book, but I would never go around and be it's compulsory for all women to express their anger, to let their anger out, because that's just not reflective of the world that we actually live in and have to survive in. But I do think that if you can find ways that feel safe in your personal sphere or your professional sphere to be a little bit more uncompromising when it feels doable. I think that small incremental moves can have a big impact. And yeah, I don't think that everyone has to come out blazing every second of every day. That's also exhausting. But I think that there's a reason why women's anger is actively suppressed in our culture, and it's because it has power and it is threatening. And so I guess I'm not giving you very good advice specifically because I don't know the answer. Everyone's life is different, and your life is shaped differently than mine. And again, I don't ever want to tell anyone how they need to behave because it's just not my place, and I also don't know. But I do think that the more we can, what helps is solidarity, is spending time in spaces like this where it is safe to express your anger, and finding collectives where you can turn that anger into action in a productive way with other people who feel the same way and who will support you even if you're afraid, and even if the world around you tries to enforce consequences against that kind of stigmatized anger. I think that a thing that Me Too, for example, is a manifestation of female anger that is only possible because it's a collective action, because of the number of people who came forward at the same time and said the same thing and insisted this is real, we all experienced it. Because it's not like no one had ever heard a story about Harvey Weinstein before. Or Bill Cosby. I mean, it was individual people, or Louis C.K. I mean, those rumors were around for so long, but it was sort of one woman at a time who would then be systematically discredited and silenced and put away. And it was the fact that there was this collective moment, this collective action where many voices at once spoke up and supported each other and corroborated each other and expressed their anger. together that made that moment so powerful and so effective. And it's really hard to be a lone voice saying something that you're not supposed to say. But I think if you can find communities and solidarity, there's no end to the power that we can harness if we do it together.
Brilliantly put. Have you read the new Ronan Farrow book yet?
No, not yet, but I want to. Have you?
Do it.
Is it good? I've heard
It's really
very good.
It's sickeningly page-turnery and kind of feels like a spy thing. The cover art helps. But then when you really sit with so much of what you're saying, he's documenting the process through which he and, frankly, other journalists were going to try to get enough women to understand that there were many of them willing to go on the record to finally have the House of Cards fall. And it's really hard to contemplate all the time that it took to get to that moment and all the agony that these women were going through as they were contemplating the consequences, even with there's no guarantee that having that collective will provide the necessary protection. We've now seen that it actually did yield positive progress, I guess. But
yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Some small degree of progress. Obviously, people are already having comebacks. Harvey Weinstein's having a great night at the comedy club. Louis C.K.'s on tour. I think it's perhaps telling that that Bill Cosby is the only one sitting in prison. But there was at least some kind of movement, and it's not over. We're all still here. Some kind of dam has been broken, and I think what we're experiencing right now is the real-time building of a new system. And we all have the opportunity to participate in that as members of this society. We get to decide who we forgive and who we take back and what forgiveness looks like and what atonement looks like and whether anyone is entitled to that at all. I'm very tired of being asked, the 5 seconds after any man sees any shred of accountability or consequence for anything, literally 5 seconds later, it's like someone comes to me and is like, well, how are people supposed to get their stuff back? I don't know. Don't be bad in the first place. Don't abuse your power and exploit people. Also, how about if you want your life back, if you want to be forgiven and you want to atone, you troubleshoot it. You figure it out. Keep trying stuff until people forgive you. I don't know. It's not my place to say. I don't get to decide when you're forgiven. I'm acting like I'm personally being constantly asked, being called on the phone by Harvey Weinstein, but I just mean the cultural conversation is always like, okay, women, give us a roadmap. What's up? What gives? And it's like, I don't know, you figure it out. Try stuff. Try for 1 second. Oh, sorry you had to sit in your mansion for a year and no one was nice to you. Except for all the men. I shouldn't. Whatever. Never. I'm gonna. Okay.
Next question.
Just slam on the brakes and cut this one off.
Hi, Lindy.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Amber. We've met before. I used to send you arancini and La Medusa at a restaurant in Seattle. But anyway,
my favorite restaurant
I've been
in
a
Seattle.
fan for such a long time of your writing, and I think you do have an incredible brand. This is like a business conference, and a lot of us are talking about our brands, but you build a lot of joy into your brand of also being angry and well-educated and really successful, and congratulations on all that success.
That's so nice. Thank you.
Of course, we're all big fans, but how intentionally do you build that joy and levity into a brand while we're all laughing about you talking about a serial killer? And as you build that brand, what are you looking forward to professionally Obviously, I think we're more like business-oriented than writers, but I think we're all fans. So what are you looking forward to?
Thank you. That's so nice. I feel personally like I'm bad at branding and I don't know how to do it. Like someone told me the other day that I need to be making Instagram lives, and I was like, what? I can't. I'm so tired. I want to watch guys' grocery games. But anyway, I think that, and what I mean by that is that there's not a lot of deliberate branding going on. This is very much who I am and just sort of naturally and what it's like to hang out with me, for good or for ill. But I certainly deliberately try to use humor in my work in a way that's constructive. I think that by being funny, you can get people to swallow really challenging ideas. A thing I do a lot in this book is like you kind of saw it in the chapter I read. The chapter will be like half like extreme goofiness, and then half like so earnest and sincere that it borders on corny. And I really like doing that balance. I think that people are afraid of sincerity in a way that can be really toxic, and I like to just truly go there and be extreme in my vulnerability and the emotionality of the work. And that's what I think that's also what I'm like as a person. And I also think that it's, especially right now, although certainly every issue we're dealing with right now predated Trump, and I think it's really lazy and dangerous to blame all of our problems on Trump. But it is particularly grim these days, and it's really tempting to fall into despair, which I think is really unproductive. And so I definitely do try to be joyful and make life feel like it's worth living on some level, that the world is worth fighting for, because it is. And because I think, especially with climate change and, climate change feels so daunting that I think it's really easy for people to give up and be like, I can't fix, Greenland's melting. I can't fix Greenland, but again, collectively, we can do a lot. And I think to let yourself believe that we're just at the end is really dangerous. And so I do deliberately try to make sure that there's joy and hope and mirth in my work, because I think that's the only way that we're gonna survive is to not succumb to despair, and to believe that we have power, because we do. We still do. We do. It's not over, Yeah. And what I look forward to. I don't know. I have like a bunch of weird jobs. I hope season 2 of Shrill comes out in January. I hope we get to make a season 3. I'm working on another book that'll come out, I think, next year. That's like a straight up, just like goofy, funny book, which I'm excited to write because this book was hard. It's hard to think about politics every day, all day. Although I guess we all do anyway. But I don't know. I want to do everything. I feel like I should probably have a podcast because like everyone does that. But also like I think it would be fun, right?
You really should.
Okay, I will.
Do we need a Lindy podcast?
See, but here's where I need businesswomen. Like, how do you turn a podcast into money? Because I know that people do. I don't know how to do that.
Well,
do you know how?
You have people to do that.
I know, but I don't have the people.
Well,
Someone
that's why you're here.
Okay, great.
Someone call Lindy. Okay, we have time for one more question. Oh, there's Ernest waving.
Hi.
She waved for me. Okay, so far today, I've heard you curse on stage. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Sometimes people get mad at me.
I love it. I'm here for it. I've heard you talk about being angry. I hear you talk about being a fat woman and what is that like, and not talk about it like it takes something away from you, but it's just inherently a part of who you are, and that's fine. So I just want to ask, like, where do you grab the courage and the strength to so openly, like, reject respectability politics? I'm always like, I don't want to hear it, respectability politics, I'm not here for it. And I'm, like, always getting the backlash, you got to fall in line, you have to move with the crowd, and when you're in Rome, and where do you grab, your confidence to stray away from that?
Yeah, that's such a great question. It's such an important question. And, I think, I don't know exactly. I mean, like I've said several times, like, I'm really lucky. I live in Seattle. I live in a very liberal place, I mean, in certain ways, where, I'm not in danger necessarily for talking about my abortion, or, I don't... I live in a really supportive community. I have a family that's really incredible, and I have a really strong foundation that makes it feel less scary to put myself out there, because I have people around me who know who I am and who can remind me who I am, which is really, really valuable. But also, I think once I started writing really vulnerable things, and writing kind of more about my personal life, and saying things that are a little bit more radical and more challenging, I also started to hear from people who needed to hear those things. And also I write things that I needed to hear 10, 15 years ago. And once you start to hear from people that your work is healing for them, or makes them feel seen, or makes them feel less alone, or empowers them, or gives them a script to use in their own life to change things that they've been wanting to change, or confront people who have been hurting them. Once you start to hear things like that, I mean, it's like addictive. Like, there's nothing better, It's absolutely worth any cost. Because what else is the point of being alive? What's the point of living together in a society if you can't help each other? And I guess because I feel like I have a strong foundation, and I'm really lucky to have been born into the life that I have, the family that I have, the friendships that I have. It feels like the least I can do to use that foundation to and use this platform that I'm lucky enough to have to do anything that I can to make other people feel less alone, or change the world around me, or just make noise in a provocative way in the name of things that I believe in really strongly. So I don't know. It's a hard question for me to answer, because I just haven't felt that way in a long time. It's like and again, that's a privilege. I am lucky to have this life and this platform. But really, truly, once I started doing it, there was no going back. Like, it's so rewarding to feel like you're part of a community, and that you can help people in any kind of a small, tiny way, and maybe move the world in an even tinier way, have any kind of ripple in the world, So, yeah, there have been a lot of costs. I've been threatened a lot. I've been harassed a tremendous amount. My address has been posted on the internet, my phone number, who knows what else. And I worry about my family. Sometimes I worry about my kids, but the benefit is absolutely just couldn't be more worth it. There's no question. There's no question about it. Also, what's the alternative? Like, I agree that I'm fat and gross and don't deserve respect and dignity. Like, it's not an option for me. It's not an option. And I know that I used to feel that way, and I remember what that feels like, and I know that other people are out there feeling that way right now, and if I can do anything to help them climb out of that pit, then I'm so thrilled to do it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindy.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun. Thank you, really.
That was amazing.